Okay, welcome back to the Friday Club. I'm really excited to introduce this week's guest, who is Stephen Bilboe of WCBS. Steve, welcome and thank you for talking to us today.
Great, thank you, Sophie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Really excited. So we've worked together for a few months now, and I'm really keen to get your opinions on all things admissions today. Just before we start, I'd like to know a little bit more about yourself, your role, and what you do at WCBS that serves the admissions community, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course, that's great. So as you said, I'm Stephen Bilboe. I'm the CEO of WCBS. And some people know WCBS. We've been around in independent and international schools for sort of 37 years. With about 40% of UK independent schools using one of our solutions, whether that's across admissions, MIS, or finance. But actually, over the last couple of years, we've been investing really heavily, over £6 million in genuine next generation of cloud native technologies. And that's because we actually believe that independent schools have been underserved by edtech companies for a while. If we think about the user experiences that we have in our personal lives, whether it's the mobile phones in our pockets, very sophisticated bits of equipment, but so easy and intuitive to use that don't require a lot of training. We're not necessarily seeing that in schools. So we think there's a huge opportunity, like we've seen in the likes of fintech with Monzo, Starling, Revolut, Free Trade, etc., bringing this innovation to a typically sort of stale environment previously, where technology has been around for a very long time and they're not able to deliver some of those advancements because of the tech debt that they're having. We think there's a big opportunity to deliver much better experiences for schools, and actually none more so than in admissions. That very first experience that a parent has helps your school stand out, and understanding your pipeline, where your leads are coming from, which is your best conversion. Is it word of mouth? Is it some advertising you've recently done on the side of a bus? It doesn't necessarily matter where it might be, but how can you drive that to help you achieve a full school? And obviously a full school equals more revenue, which allows you to do more things in that school and deliver more teaching and learning for all the things that you want to do.
Absolutely. And I guess that data will play a part in that, and collecting the right data. And with a solution like yours, data-driven decision making rather would play a really important part. Do you have a view, Steve, on what does data-driven decision making mean, and what data counts to a school?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just the first thing to say, though, independent by name, independent by nature with schools. Mm-hmm. There isn't a one size cookie cutter approach that fits all, in my view. And a personal approach and personal service is really important. However, when you think about a admissions office that might be open from, let's say, 8 in the morning till 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, there's only so much you can do with that time. Mm-hmm. So therefore, using technology to help provide a more sophisticated or automated experience to your parents that you can still personalize will allow you to offer a slicker experience to them, maybe at a time and a place that suits them, 10 o'clock in the evening rather than in the hours that you're open, for instance. And then not only that, you'll be able to really understand that data to see what's working. Where are they dropping off in the application process, for instance? Or where are you generating those leads from? Is it a form that you've put out on social media? You've done some advertising on that. What's your return on investment that's coming in? And then when you're looking at your forecast for next year, you're sat in front of the governors and you're working out whether you've got a full school and what year groups you may or may not have the gaps. Where are you going to focus your efforts? So say you've got 5 or 6 places that you need to fill. One might be in year 7, one might be in year 4. It doesn't necessarily matter where they are, but once you can understand it, you can see where to focus those efforts. And then you can start to drill down into your pipeline and your conversions to say, actually, my best conversions have come from that recent advert that we've done on Facebook, or for instance, through our alumni connections that we have. So therefore, I know that if I get 10 inquiries from this source, I typically convert 50% or higher, but let's just say it's 50%. So to fill that 5 places, I just need a further 10 inquiries. I'm going to go and make sure I get those because I'm now going to be able to fill that school accordingly. So for me, using data to provide a more personalized service, but ultimately helping you achieve a full school, I think can make a big difference.
Yeah, and it's really nice to hear your view that being data-driven doesn't equate to a lack of personalisation. The two can coexist. And I guess with that admissions process, we as schools want to make it easier for parents to apply with things like the extended hours that you've talked about. What do you think that a school can do to keep a parent engaged throughout that admissions process?
Yeah, so I think it's really good you picked up on that, actually, because most people think being data-driven, being automated actually takes away from some of that personalized service. my view is that it complements it really well. So it allows you to send maybe some automated follow-up, because they can all be mail merged, for instance, whether it's an email or a text that might be going out to them, it can still be really personalized. For instance, it might be, Sophie, it was an absolute pleasure to have you at yesterday's open day. We loved having, say your son's called Jack, for instance, if you had a son, for argument's sake. It was great to have Jack visit us. We were delighted with his interest in our new sports facility in the swimming pool. All that can be automated, but it feels very personalized to you. So you can still provide a personalized service to your parents, but with automated follow-up through the system at the right time. So if somebody's gone cold, for instance, that might be, I don't know, 5 days without a contact, you might decide, I want this message. At 10 days, you want a different one. You can do all that sort of stuff to provide it. And then you can decide to maybe add a more personalized touch along the way, which might consist of a telephone call or a handwritten note, or whatever else you might want to do that can complement what you're already doing in a more automated manner.
Absolutely, because I think that admissions teams do a really good job of that, really human-centered approach, having a chat, understanding individual families, but they can't be available 24/7, unfortunately. So having the tools that complement what they do face-to-face or in person, one-on-one, is really, really important. We talk a lot on the Friday Club, Steve, about schools becoming more commercially minded, and I think that what we've discussed so far really fits into that. What is your view on how important it is to become more commercially minded as an independent school, and what do you think schools are doing well on that journey?
Okay, I think potentially a controversial point, but a really interesting one with what we're seeing. Obviously, delivering an outstanding education, so teaching and learning, is the primary goal of all schools. But to be able to do that really successfully, you have to be a financially sound institution. And we're seeing a lot of cost pressures that are coming into school at the moment, whether that's been teachers' pension that's providing a significant cost burden on many schools. We've seen the charitable status looking to be removed up in Scotland. So there are some cost pressures that are coming. COVID saw, I think, 30 independent schools close, typically your smaller schools that were possibly struggling to stand out in a relatively crowded market, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So I think schools are becoming a little bit more commercially minded, but what I mean by that is not necessarily just relying on the lovely open day that they've done over the last 20, 30, 50 years or more, and the fantastic telephone manner. It's how can we really advertise our offering and stand out to a wider catchment area? So what can we do around that to help us achieve a full school? And for instance, if we just take some numbers on that, if you've got 5 places that you're not filling, for instance, that might not seem like a lot on the surface, but if your average fees are, say, £20,000, that equates to £100,000 in year 1. Over 5 years, that's £1 million, and then doesn't even bring into consideration the alumni value that those students may have when they look back. They've been very successful in their career, and they've got all this nostalgia about their experience at your school, and they want to help you donate to build your next swimming pool. So I think schools are becoming more commercially minded, but it is still very much about delivering an excellent teaching and learning experience for the students.
And I love that. I think, they're not mutually exclusive. Having an exceptional teaching and learning environment actually makes you more commercially savvy, because you can do more with increased funds that are coming in, whether that's alumni generated, admissions generated. So I love that opinion. Thank you. One of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about with your experience with hub admissions is for admissions teams that, sometimes they might be an admissions team of 1, so very limited amount of time, but they find that enrolments are quite labour intensive. Where do you think they should focus their efforts?
Yeah, so again, I think you said about it earlier, an admissions team can't be available 24/7.
Yeah.
A shame, but we've all got to live our lives, and let's say they're open from 8 till 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. This is where, and especially if there's only one of you still got to have your holiday, and there might be sick from time to time, but yet you still want to strike while the iron's hot. So if you do get an inquiry that comes in, being able to respond to that in a timely fashion is really important. So I think this is where technology can help, not take away from that personal experience that we talked about previously, but it certainly can help you achieve more with a smaller staff count, whether that's automating some communications, whether it's providing a portal, for instance, where they can complete the application, upload any paperwork that might be done, communicate back to you at a time and a place that suits them, because many parents are time poor. So when actually they come to do it, it might not be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because they're busy with work or whatever else it might be. It's 10, 11 o'clock at night when the kids are in bed and they've got some downtime and they're actually looking to do that. Not saying that's the case for everybody, but I think it is the case for a number of parents. And therefore, having technology that can enable a parent to engage with your school and progress their application at that time and a place that suits them will really help you make more, especially in a small admissions team.
And is there anything that you think schools can do that makes managing those applications easier, but doesn't compromise the data integrity?
Yeah, so one of the things, again, you can do with technology is different workflow. So I think I said earlier in this conversation around independent by name, independent by nature, and there isn't a one size fits all approach, and there isn't a one admissions journey for every child. It might be different for different year groups, depending on, do you need their GCSE results? Do you need common entrance, for instance? Is it a sports scholarship and it needs to go to the head of sport to review the application? Is it a music scholarship that goes there? Has it got some bursary requirements that's coming in? So, with a good admission solution, you can automatically feed them or filter them through the relevant journey that fits their criteria. So when they're applying, they say, actually, I'd like to apply for the sports scholarship, for instance. They get fed down a different route. If they're coming from China, for argument's sake, that will have a different visa requirement for someone coming from Somerset, or wherever else it might be. So you can automate these sort of things to make it far more effective, and their journey can be bespoke to their individual needs.
Amazing. So one of the things that I really like about talking to you about everything you do at WCBS, but specifically around hub admissions, is the flexibility that you can give to admissions teams. And for schools that are probably aware there's lots of choice in MIS and CRM, what do you think admissions teams should be looking for when they choose a technical solution?
Yeah, so again, just like my comment at the beginning of this around schools being underserved by edtech companies for a while, I think that's almost true with admissions as well, in so much that, many MIS systems, ourselves in the past included, would provide an admissions module as an add-on to an MIS solution. Actually, I think they need more than an add-on module. It should really be thinking of it as a full admissions CRM for your school, just like you would if you were running a commercial business in another sector. You would probably have a CRM system where you're managing your pipeline, your inquiries, trying to convert those inquiries to leads, and ultimately one business. It's no different in a school. So I think there's a lot that can be done, and innovation that can happen in that space that doesn't necessarily come from an add-on module, but it's a specific solution for admissions that deals right with that initial inquiry, so you can understand where your inquiries are coming from, what's your best source, see them through that application. So before you actually know about them, but dealing with them from that inquiry, seeing them through all the way to an enrolled student, and potentially, depending on the systems that you choose, all that data should then filter directly through into your management information and billing system accordingly. So you've only had one point of data entry, and that was right at the beginning.
And that will help with a lot of your time poor aspect as well, because you're doing it once.
Yeah, and also familiarity for parents.
Yeah.
I think data integrity is really important for schools, but also not having to duplicate any data. Ideally, what you want, whether it's a staff member that's applying to join the school, or whether it's a pupil that's looking to join your school, that is their first port of call, their first interaction. Technically, all of that data, once it's in there, should filter through into your other systems without having to take them out and upload them into another system or to manually enter them in. But equally, that experience that they had as their first experience and making it a good one, I think, is really important.
I agree. So, Steve, one of the things that we always like to ask our guests as we wrap up our interviews is, what is it that you like about working with independent and international schools?
Yeah, so I think the market is fantastic. I've worked in EdTech a long time. I was fortunate enough to be independently educated myself, and I equally feel very nostalgic about my time, especially at prep school in particular. And so seeing them get the right solutions that will help them deliver that outstanding education, which they are world renowned for, and continue to do so, is definitely where we at WCBS are trying to bring some innovation, and see that continue to be delivering the best education in the world for the foreseeable future.
Amazing. Love that. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and your expertise with us today. We're super grateful. You've been a brilliant guest for us at the Friday Club. Looking forward to this interview going out and hearing more from you in the future, Steve.
That's great, Sophie. Thank you very much indeed, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thank you.